Today, I have an extra special treat for you. So, I sat down with Greg Marlin, who is the CEO and founder of Transformation.ai. These guys are revolutionizing the customer journey. So, Greg is a serial entrepreneur. He started multiple successful companies, including Marketing.ai. And as I said, recently it's been Transformation.ai. The exciting thing is, with my conversation, I realized that Greg is not only a seasoned AI expert, but also a seasoned marketer. So this is really straight down where we want to be. I mean, simple AI for marketers is all about marketing AI, and Greg epitomizes exactly that. So it was a fantastic conversation. So Transformation.ai, actually, they have this sort of agile framework that connects all the customer sort of elements throughout the customer journey, makes it very visual, very easy to change, very easy to connect and plug in data from various data sources. So you're going to see a lot more of what Transformation.ai is doing. Greg, again, very smart guy. I think it's going to be right up your alley. You're going to enjoy this, no doubt. So sit back, grab a coffee, relax, and enjoy. So, Greg, thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm pretty excited to be speaking with you because you've got such a vast background, not only in the AI space, but also in the marketing space, which is specifically speaks to our audience who are marketers around the world who are trying to get their heads around artificial intelligence, how it can be applied to their businesses and to their clients' businesses. So just to sort of give us some background, I mean, you've launched a number of companies successfully, including Marketing.ai, and now you're into Transformational.ai. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, where you're going.
Great. Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat about these. Appreciate having these kind of very high-level strategic conversations, and that kind of is really the frame in which guides the companies that I build and the software that I build. It's all about elevating strategy. Because I think that in an increasingly complex world, driven by the empowered customer, and that you need to still sort of slow time down and have a strategy, and then execute on that strategy. And yes, you can make tactical tests and iterations and adjustments at a sort of local level, but you still have to have that strategy. So that's always sort of informed my my thinking, and part of that actually goes back to sort of my first professional job, which was working for Siemens, and I was a strategic planning analyst, and I was worked with a great team and had responsibility for managing in some ways a portfolio project of over 410 different product lines that made up Siemens. So I saw how all of these different types of products interconnected, and the importance of strategy. But at the same time, I was a little bit frustrated because we would do all kinds of work with the business units around strategy, and then I would ask, my boss, well, so how do we know how these plans are being implemented? And we didn't know, and we suspected that they were sort of gathering dust. And I learned over time in my careers and working for different companies, and then obviously with Marketing.ai confirming it, and then also sort of confirming the Transformation.ai and onwards, and just the conversations that I have, that it's still that case that you can do a lot of strategy and then it kind of collects dust unless you can implement it and sort of embed it in your daily work. So that's kind of like my background of I'm always trying to elevate strategy, and I try and sell to the strategists and the executives that understand that I want to make their lives easier and them more successful with the software that I build.
Now, and from what I can see, I mean, you're looking at solving a very real problem. I mean, you mentioned 400 and something products. I mean, as a marketer myself, I mean, there's so many choices. It's overwhelming which products to use, when to use it. So from what I've seen so far from your various solutions is they seem to really bring everything to one central point. So with Transformation.ai, from what I can see, it's based around the customer journey. I mean, customer
Yeah.
journeys are notoriously difficult to track, to sort of stay on top of those things, what's working, what's not. And what you're doing now is really trying to sort of simplify this whole process through some agile framework. So you can collect these elements, you can report on them, and people throughout the organization can see what is actually effective within the customer journey. Is that, am I like two-way
Do
of
you need a
base?
job in sales? Because I think you should work for us. That's perfect. In fact, what I would say is you nailed it. Basically, it's kind of what I would call a radical simplification. You know, how can we take something that's very complex and radically simplify it? And for me, that was the customer journey map. You know, because the customer journey map just obliterates the silos, right? There's no hiding between different functions and tools, right. And you know, it shows you the journeys as they actually happen. And it's actually how it's kind of interesting. You know, this is how your customer experiences the journeys. They do it through dots and lines, you know, that interconnect, like, you know, the way our brains process information, and not tables and rows, which is how we try and somehow parse and make sense of the world through spreadsheets and, you know, different reports and all that kind of thing. So for me, it was the customer journey map should be the central tool in how you manage your business. You know, so that's sort of what we're doing with Transformation.ai.
Right. So you're sucking in data from different sources. Because I see you integrate with companies like Facebook and HubSpot and Salesforce, whom we love as well. So you just suck that data in and then you sort of parse it and make sense of it?
Yeah, so it starts with the mapping itself. So there's actually, you know, in terms of our value proposition, what we do is sort of two core elements. One is we save you tons of time, right? And in just massive amounts of time in different parts of the process of managing customer journeys. And then we drive insight. So you sort of save time and gain insight, and that sort of drives our thing. So what that could mean different things to different people. And so whenever I build, like you said, a framework, an agile framework, I want to make it, you know, enough of a framework that there's some structure, but I want to also provide enough flexibility that, you know, you're not forced to do things the way I want to do things, right? So I was kind of, again, every strategist has, you know, they know their business, they know their domain, and yet they want this framework to work and, you know, sort of mesh to how they work. So at the fundamental level, when someone's doing customer journey mapping today, they'll start with these big butcher boards and sticky notes or PowerPoint or Visio, etc. And this is already, I mean, the ROI of just doing that is clear. I mean, it's kind of outstanding in terms of you know, sort of higher return on marketing investment, greater, you know, 3 times revenue from referrals. You know, so it's already good. The trouble is that there's a lot of manual work involved. You know, okay, I want to create a new version of the customer journey in PowerPoint. There's a lot of cutting and pasting, and it's sort of prohibitive in terms of the work involved in just doing different experiments. So we created a very simple way to digitize your touch points and then reuse them in a simple drag and drop mapping interface.
Nice.
Now that saves, you know, in some cases hundreds of hours. But the next step is even
Simple
better,
is good,
right? But then the next thing is, now you've mapped it. Is it just a pretty picture, or can you do something with it? And so in our maps, there are actual, you know, highly interactive tools that connect to your actual data. So you integrate with, let's say, HubSpot, and now you're looking at your map, and you click in on individual touch points, and you connect right there at that touch point. Maybe that touch point is an email, or it's a, you know, it's a process, or it's something like that. So you can connect your data right at that touch point, and you can combine that with other types of data at that touch point. So you say, well, I want some marketing automation data, or I want some Google Analytics data, or I want to execute on an NPS survey using our SurveyMonkey integration. Right. And so you're able to sort of combine that at a touch point level, and then at a map level, which might be an end-to-end customer journey map, or it might be a segment of that, then you roll up and see a dashboard. So at a very kind of simple conceptual level, you've mapped something, you can create different versions of those maps, you can collaborate on that. And so the time to insight of, oh, we're missing a touch point there, oh, that's a good idea, let's add a touch point, let's do something there. The time to get to that sort of upfront strategic insight is, drastically reduced. You have a lot of sort of more opportunity to experiment, and so that gets done. And then when you start getting into pulling in the data into the map, and actually seeing how these journeys are actually happening, that's obviously a huge insight, because what you're saying, again, huge insight, huge time saving, because on a map you're connecting, let's say, 8 different data silos, right? And they're exactly how you want to see the information, right? They're exactly in the context you want to see it, and the alternative is to hop around between these 8 different data silos, and somehow parse that in your brain, right? And that's really hard. So radical simplification on that, and then sort of the next level. So we actually call it like a crawl, walk, run, right? So the crawl is already huge value. Digitize your touch points, map them, gain insight from that. The walk is when you really start pulling in the data. You instrument it. You get really, there's a lot of insight right there in that process, because you say, I don't have a data source at that touch point. What am I going to do about that? So now you go off and you find data, and it could be survey data, it could be analytics data, it could be third-party data. So you can see what data you need at a particular touch point, and then how you're going to roll that up into a dashboard that represents the map. So you can see the map and you see the dashboard. The map itself provides a lot of cues into what's important. And then as you do that, this is where that kind of real agile thing comes in, because when you're getting to the run now, is you're managing your business using these maps, and these, a map can be combined between like external and internal, right? So you have the touch points that are external, that is the customer experience, and you have the touch points that are the internal processes and ways of doing things that are supposed to create those experiences or support those experiences. And you can also pull data in from your internal systems to see how that's working out. So it's very, good that way. And then you see the result, you have conversations and collaborations within the tool to discuss how you might improve at that particular touch point or holistically in the journey. And then you make a change and record your change in the system. And then you can see how changes that you've made have, at least correlate to results. So really, I mean, it's very simple. I use it to run our business, right? And it's a radical simplification of how you go about managing these otherwise very complex things called customer journeys.
I'll tell you, I'm visualizing this as you're speaking, and my brain just gets excited, because the last thing you want to look at is, as you said, spreadsheets and data that just doesn't make sense. So it's lovely that you can visualize it and bring all these data points together. Tell me, I'm just curious, Greg, in terms of customers, I mean, who is the ideal customer? Now, I know you mentioned it's the crawl, walk, run. So could a crawl technically be a smaller company as well, or does there have to be a certain amount of data?
Well, again, because there's the crawl, like you said, you get a lot of value without ever hooking up any data, right? So that could be anyone who really wants to do kind of customer journey mapping and understand. And then, look, you can get a lot of value from one data point, which would be Google Analytics, right? But you do have to, it does take a certain amount of buy-in, right? You're driving change here, right? And so, like, we kind of look at digital transformation. That's the name, right? I mean, obviously you're transforming your business. So you're looking at customer experience. It's kind of driving that. And you have then the operational transformation that goes through to create that customer experience. And then, of course, eventually when you get there, you start thinking about new business models that you might run because of, the new nature of your business. That requires, so far, it tends to appeal more to bigger companies, and they have an executive commitment and they're driving things. But I don't see any reason why a smaller company couldn't do it, but they would just, they would have to commit to the effort.
I mean, in terms of implementation times, I mean, is it like a rough period? Is it a few weeks? Is it a few months? How long does it take to implement the general sort of Transformation.ai solution?
Yeah, so you'd be surprised. We can implement it. I mean, we have a free trial. People can sign up and use it and start doing it. We tend to do a sort of onboarding process, and it usually takes a couple of weeks really to get set up, and then because you're configuring things to map how you're doing things today, and then we target sort of a 30 to 90 day for the entire team. Usually there's a smaller team that gets started with it, let's say 15 people. And then, so obviously that's a bigger company already. And then, it can scale into, many, many people. So it's really about, getting what's the initial value, show the initial value, because the initial value is huge, like I said. And then then you start to move to that kind of, I want to manage my business using customer journeys. And the very advanced, I mean, there's different things, because it can be marketing driving it, it can be customer experience driving it, it can be sales driving it, quite frankly. And then so it really depends on where how the organization sees, how they see the who manages the customer journey or manages the customer experience. Ultimately, customer experience touches everybody in the company, right? So who's driving this? If you get a company that understands, for instance, I really believe this, and I think it's a great quote, is basically customer experience is your brand.
Yeah.
Right. The sum of the different experiences that that customer has is your brand. So you can't fool anybody anymore, right? There's no spin. It's the customer experience, and so it can be different people in the organization driving it. One of the interesting things that I see is that there are a growing number of companies that are actually building dedicated customer journey management teams, and there are people with the title customer journey manager. So it started in retail and financial services, but I think that could be a growth title.
Yes, and certainly, I mean, from my experience and the people I've been working with, also it's becoming more recognized now. Like even AI, I mean, before it was science fiction, and in the last I would say probably even the last 18 months, really, people are starting to recognize, I suppose, thanks to people like Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft and those guys and IBM. I think people have accepted the fact that, I mean, this is where it's going, and we talk about it being the fourth industrial revolution. I think that reality is certainly sinking in with, let's say, the mid to sort of enterprise level businesses. I think the small guys are still probably thinking, you know what, a website's good enough for me. I mean, that unfortunately they're going to be suffering in a few years. But
I think so when it comes to AI. I think it's an interesting time, because, obviously I saw the marketing side of it. And I think if you go to the Anguilla site, which is, the .ai, I think my name is on there as, one of the first people to register these and make them about artificial intelligence. So from a marketing perspective, I've been there from the beginning, doing it when it was still a dirty word, as you said. And so I've kind of watched it. I think what's very interesting is there's been a lot of commoditization, things that people thought were going to be important, right? So the number of like free tools or freemium tools that you can get that do sophisticated NLP, both on the sort of text and image side, the sort of free model builders, it's very interesting. So they've there's never been a better time to kind of build an AI application, but because of all this sort of free plumbing, as I call it, it's actually opening up for companies just to do it themselves, right? I mean, their ability, and so I would recommend any company getting started with this. Where do I get started with where this that would make sense? It could be something with NLP. sort of image and text recognition, sentiment analysis. Maybe that's going to save you some time, and maybe you can add a model on top of that to do something useful for yourself. It could be that you put in a chatbot. A lot of people doing that right now, and that's a very, the business case for that is really clear. There's some dangers, obviously, but I think that there's sort of that ubiquitous opportunity. I mean, you can even go and use the open source, tools yourself, and build a little AI generated app. So it's kind of interesting, but nobody has built a killer app yet, right? There's no email for email was the internet, right? Nobody's built a killer app yet, in my mind, for AI. There's lots of potentials. And there's like I said, lots of great plumbing. Watson's good plumbing, and because they took over Alchemy API, which was pretty good, and just all these tools like Clarify and stuff like that. Amazon offers a lot. Microsoft offers a lot. Facebook offers a lot. Google offers a lot. All of which is generally free until you get to a point where you're doing something useful and generating serious revenue from it. So it's a very interesting time, but lot to be still shaken out.
Yeah, I think, thanks to companies like that, they're providing, as you said, that free plumbing to help with that sort of critical mass, getting us to that point a lot quicker. Let me ask you this, because you got a huge background in marketing and on the sort of AI side, as I mentioned earlier. If there was one message that you would want to share with marketers, people like myself, what would that be regarding sort of AI?
Yeah, I would, like I said, the biggest message is how can you use AI to amplify what works? How can you use AI to amplify your strategy? Because ultimately, that's what this is about. You could waste a lot of time, diving into domains of AI that don't relate to your greatest challenges. I think there is definitely, within sort of your innovation budget, it makes sense at this point to devote some time to find a project that will increase your organizational knowledge of how this stuff works. Like I said, you could waste a lot of time if you went down the wrong rabbit hole, right? So I think It's really about understanding, okay, here's the forest for the trees. And obviously you could use a tool like mine to do that, but you even if you didn't, do that exercise, and then you look and you understand, hey, look, there's an opportunity here to add, something simple, a scanning tool basically is going to go through your images and tell you what's in there, so that saves a lot of time. You could add some sentiment analysis to some part of your internal system. You could add sentiment analysis. Now, there may be tools that do this, but sentiment analysis to your internal conversations, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can, use some of these plumbing tools, and they're continuing to evolve, which is interesting, and their accuracy is pretty good. So I would definitely look at something like that. I think the chatbot stuff is super interesting, just because it's so straightforward in terms of building stuff like that. The flip side is that you could easily get hurt with that kind of stuff, right? I think more and more because of that, people are they're very savvy. Right. I think one of the things I learned early on, I've been, before AI and marketing, I was internet. I did a lot of internet. I did a lot of content businesses. And one of the earliest things I learned was that wherever on the internet someone got a particular experience that was positive, they expect that same level of experience from every other thing that they do on the internet. Right. So it's like, once they had experienced Facebook, they wanted that level of sort of ease of use of everything else that they touched on the internet. Right. And it's the same thing. So if they get a great experience that is, better than what's offered by a chatbot, and someone has figured out how to do that, or that they've figured out how to do a very good, mesh of chatbot and real person, then and you come out with something stale and old, and that's really going to hurt you. So that's the danger of some of this stuff. So I think it's like, yeah, start small, find something that works, iterate, and use the plumbing that's there.
In terms of sort of trends that you've come across, I mean, but is there anything specifically that you've come across, let's call it either from the semantic side or from the email side or anything that's marketing related, where you say, my goodness, I mean, I see this little niche, this sort of narrow slither of the market exploding in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think that there's a conversation amongst some of us that the breakout app, the one that is going to really change the market. Obviously, I'm trying to work on something like that. Is going to be around user interface. So basically, we are in AI where computers were in the 70s, right? Lots of hobbyists. You have to have real sort of technical knowledge, right? So you buy your motherboard, you put your computer together, and that's what you do, right? And then Apple came out with this super simple user interface for accessing, your personal computer, right? So that was really for me, the real revolution was the user interface. And that's why actually, it was a big deal when they came out with the mouse and the keyboard, and it all worked pretty well. And it's been a while since we've had a radical sort of jump in the user interface. And I think that's why people are they're putting stuff in around voice. They're putting stuff in around, sort of tactile stuff. You have, Surface was pretty cool, but, it wasn't that big of a deal. And so somewhere in there, AI will, have something to say about the user interface. And, people talk about, having sort of a symbiote going in order for that to do that. But I mean, those are the kind of applications that, excite me. And, you could take that and that would be like, you have your general version of that.
I mean, this is like, for me, sort of hearing sort of the conversation around the future and AI and technology. It's like a love story for me, man. I look so forward to this future, which already, I suppose, I mean, in our lifetime already, we've seen so much. I mean, from virtually landing on the moon to sort of autonomous cars. I can see it. I mean, before I kick the bucket, I can see a chip in my head, and I'd be one of the first to volunteer. I mean, I love this idea of a more seamless and sort of easy user interface. I don't want to have to switch on the computer, and I just want to think about it and get the answers, or speak to my personal assistant through thought.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can do it without putting a chip in the brain, but we may have to get there, right? We may have to get there, and then we're going to have to deal with all kinds of other issues if that's the way we go. But I always kind of hope that we'll be able to do that without going that step. But yeah, it could happen. I think people like Elon Musk are already signing up too. So it'll be interesting. But we're going to run into all kinds of other problems once we start going down the road of cyborgs, because then we may end up with the issues of a brain in a computer and radically extended lifespans and all that kind of thing that will go with that. So it's going to be interesting to see the next 20 years for sure, where it goes. But I'm going to hope for the ability for us to do that without going the full cyborg route. But I totally respect everyone that would do that. I've thought about it. I'll probably end up doing it if everyone else does it, but
I mean, fascinating times. Tell me, in terms of marketing agencies, how could they use AI or Transformation.ai to sort of drive their business to increase the revenue and more customers? And
great, that's a great question. So first, I'll start with the Transformation.ai, then I'll go to the AI side. So in terms of Transformation.ai, customer journey mapping is something that agencies might be doing already as a service, and it's usually a one-off exercise. We'll create a persona for you, and then we'll map that persona's journey. But here they're able to be more of a ongoing, sort of ongoing management service for their client. So they build a customer journey map. Yes, they do the inventory of touch points, but now they manage those customer journeys ongoing as part of a monthly service to that client. And having then built that strategic context, now it's obvious where they will build little projects for the client at an individual touch point or map level. And one of those projects could be starting to use AI. So they would look at a touch point and say, hey, look, we have an opportunity to build on the data. We'll take the data that's coming in and we'll build a model around it and spit out a prediction, for instance. That could be something. Or, hey, do we want to try having some automated chatbot here, or combination of chatbot with users? So it provides a very good visualization of where they could get started and build AI competency that they then serve their customer with. So I think one for the agency, it really helps to drive, I think, a competency in new things. Ultimately, email marketing, PPC management, stuff like that. Those are starting to get pretty commoditized. So this is really the next big wave. Customer journey management, customer experience management, and I start to see some marketing agencies rebranding themselves as customer experience agencies. So I think that's really like a good opportunity for marketing agencies to get started.
Fantastic. So I assume the best way to connect with you and your team is through the website Transformation.ai, or is
Correct.
there a better way?
No, that's great. They could also email us at success@Transformation.ai, and someone will get back to them right away.
Greg, listen, thank you so much. I mean, this has been, for me as a marketer as well, this is your knowledge, both of the AI and the marketing, has really sort of helped me get a better understanding of not only what you do with Transformation.ai, but where AI is going from a marketing perspective. And I love what you just mentioned. I made a note, no longer just being sort of I probably used the wrong term here, but a sort of traditional digital marketing agency, but a customer experience agency, the next evolution in where the market's going, providing that next sort of level of value to customers. So once again, thank you very much. No doubt we will be chatting again. We'll be seeing a lot more of Transformation.ai. And I wish you the best and look forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.